Okay, I think we're on here. Welcome everyone to this little webinar, I guess we can call it, which I'm hosting today with my newish friend Essi Herman, who you'll see in a minute, and we're going to be talking today about what's it called? Dealing with physical issues and pain from an inside-out perspective. So I met Essi at the Martha's Vineyard retreat that I was at a few weeks ago. I guess she had seen me before online. We were Facebook friends, but I didn't really know her. And we didn't have too much chance to talk there actually, because I was with my husband and there was lots of other people there. So we talked a little bit, but then we had a nice chat afterwards, and I got to hear more of Essi's story. And wow, I was kind of blown away with what she's dealt with, and then how learning these, the principles that we talk about, the inside out understanding that we talk about in the Peace of Mind group. I was, amazed at how that helped her with the physical issues she's dealt with. And because I know so many people in our group, in the Facebook group, I mean, it's like every other post is about physical stuff, and it's not something that I have had to deal with, thankfully, too much. So it's great to have somebody with such a almost extreme story, I would say, to the differences in what Essi's seen for her own life. So I'm gonna kick it over to Essi right now. Oh, if anyone, Essi will talk for a little bit. I'll ask her questions and stuff, and then if anyone has questions, you can there's like a raise hand button, or you could unmute and ask it, or type to me. There's two of me on here, so if you type to the picture one of me that says admin, that would be good. But and I can ask the questions for you if you want, if you don't want to talk. Also, this will be made public on my YouTube channel, so if you're shy or don't want to be online and want to be anonymous, just type your question into the, I don't know, there's a question box or something somewhere. I think you guys probably know how to use Zoom. So I will kick it over to Essi. Essi, if you could just give us a little bit of your story, and we'll just take it from there.
Okay. Hi, Jill. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on here. I'll just start off by saying that as a young child, I pretty much grew up in a dysfunctional family, and I had a lot of anxiety. So that was always kind of like part of my life. But by the time I was like 30, I thought, doing really well. I was living on my own. I had put myself through college. I had a good job, and I had just met my now husband. But what happened in my early 30s was I got a virus, and I started feeling really bad, and it just wouldn't go away. And we didn't really know what it was at the time, and they called it the Epstein-Barr virus. And then later it was called chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. And so it was really disruptive. I mean, it wasn't just tired, it was just like non-functioning, and also a lot of pain with the fibromyalgia. But I also was diagnosed, so this story goes on for like 20 years of different things that I went through. But the interesting thing is when you told me to come on this program, I started thinking about my past, which I don't usually do and I don't recommend. I started doing a lot of thinking about like what happened, like what happened to me, and like the order of everything and all the stuff that happened to me. And honestly, like just thinking about all the stuff that happened to me in the last 20 years was making me really anxious. I did not have like the best week because of it, because I don't spend a lot of time anymore thinking about all of this stuff. I've kind of moved on with my life, and I don't even think of myself that way anymore. So it was kind of an interesting week, just noticing that, just thinking about all this stuff, how it was making me feel. But anyways, the story goes that I had the chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, but I also was suffering with things like migraines, and I had a lot of allergy and a lot of allergy testing that went on. And then I also was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis. And then I had a lot of procedures because of that, where they had to do like urethral stretching and all kinds of uncomfortable stuff that it was horrible. And then I also was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And then I had a couple of children. And after I had my kids, I started having female problems. And I had a lot of different ablations and things in my uterus and all of that. And then I ended up at age 39 with hysterectomy. And then after I had a hysterectomy, I had to have my ovary taken out, my left ovary taken out, because I had a cystic ovary. And then the last thing I had, and this is going through a 20-year period or more, and it wasn't like I went from one thing to another. I had good periods and I had really bad periods. So there were times where I was okay. And like I told you, I had a couple of children and I had no problems while I was pregnant, but then I would get something else and then I would be okay. And then something else I would get diagnosed with. And I just couldn't understand, like, why was all of this stuff happening to me? Like, why was it that I was so unhealthy, you know? So the last thing I had was a neuropathy pain. And after that, things got really, really bad for me. Like they put me, so at this point now I was on an antidepressant, an anxiolytic, Lyrica for pain, and a very strong sleep medicine that they only really give people who have narcolepsy. Because I had done a sleep study and I wasn't sleeping at all. They thought you're really, really just, your immune system is just shutting down because you're not getting any sleep. And that's why all of this stuff is happening to you. But when I used to look up like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, like a lot of people that had that also had all the stuff that I was having, you know? And the doctors were telling me that chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia was something I was going to have to live with for the rest of my life. It was not curable. And that, you know, this was just my life now, you know? And so I got really bad. And my husband and I even got separated for like 6 months during 2004. And when I hit rock bottom, like I really got to a point where I really didn't even want to be around anymore. And I had 2 small children. So you can imagine my state of mind. You know, my children are my life. But I got to a point where I felt like they were better off without me. And so was my husband, because I felt completely useless. So I also had a lot of thinking about all of the diagnoses. So it wasn't just the diagnoses. It was all the thinking I had about it. Like I was so unaccepting of all of it, you know, like I just couldn't imagine like this was my life. But the interesting part also was that I used to have thoughts like, this isn't me. Like somewhere inside of me, there was always the thought, yeah, but this isn't me. This is not me. Like I didn't feel it. I felt like it was happening to somebody else. Like this wasn't who I felt I was. And so within those 20-some year period, I was referred to like a trauma psychiatrist. I was also seeing a psychologist, and he recommended a book called Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. And that was my very first glimpse of the mind and body connection. And one thing led to another. I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of self-help books, a lot of seeking. And one day, my husband and everybody in my family orders a lot of stuff from Amazon. And by accident, a book got mailed to me in the mail. And it was a Panache to Say book. And I opened it up because I was always interested in reading a lot of stuff, but I hadn't ordered this book. And it's the first page I opened up and it said, there's no accident that you are reading this. But I was wow. It is an accident, but it wasn't an accident because Panache to Say got me listening to him on Hay House Radio, and that's where I found Michael Neal. Mm-hmm. And so I read The Inside Out Revolution, and then I did a couple of programs with Michael, And then I did a coaching program with Jenny and Rudy Kennard at the time. And the more I started looking in this direction, the more I started to see how much my thinking about my conditions was holding me in to the conditions that I was in. I used to see myself as a fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue patient. You know, I had a lot of thinking about who I was. But also, as I was thinking about it this week, I also had a lot of thinking about who I was in general, like a lot of thinking about not being good enough, a lot of shame about my condition. Like I was ashamed of who I was at the time, having so many physical problems, you know? So there was so much, it wasn't just the condition, there was just so much thinking around it, of all of the stuff. And it kept me kind of trapped in a vicious cycle of worry about all of it, which just made, I think, matters worse and worse and worse until I finally realized, oh, there's things not just happening to me, but they're happening through me, right? There's something going on within me that's happening, that's causing more and more and more things, because we know now that our thinking causes physical changes in our body all the way down to the molecular level. And even now with epigenetics, I mean, our thinking, our stress levels change our DNA. So for sure, my thinking was causing a lot of problems with my body. And once I found this understanding, I had such a strong insight about it that I just completely kind of disidentified with being a patient who has chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and everything else. You know, I mean, I'd been already getting progressively better, but I was still on a lot of medication when I came across the principles. So it kind of gave me the courage to wean myself.
How long ago was it when you read Michael?
3 years ago. Three and a half years ago. I think it was like the summer of 2015.
Okay.
So it hasn't really.
Now,
Huh?
right. So what's it like now then? You know, what's the difference?
Oh my God, it's like I'm a whole new person. First of all, I've been able to take myself off of the antidepressants and the Lyrica and the the strong sleep medication. So I don't take any of that. You know, I'm able to get up in the morning and exercise. I was always exercising as a young person. I used to be a jogger and I used to go to the gym for a very long period of time. Through all those years, I was kind of up and down with being able to even go to the grocery store, let alone, you know, do what I do now, which is, you know, get on my bike for an hour or get on the elliptical machine or do weights or, you know, just everything. Like even thinking about traveling was a really big problem for me. I used to worry about what I was going to feel like, you know, before I went on vacation. And then, of course, the worrying about it would cause me to get ill before we went on the vacation, or it didn't even have to be a vacation. It could have been just like an event or a party. You know, if something was planned, I would start worrying that I was not going to feel up to it. So much so that by the time the party got here, I was already making myself sick, you know, with worry, which then it caused physical problems for me. So,
Right.
yeah.
And that's exactly what I hear from so many people in our peace of mind group. It's that worrying about, you know, what if I get sick then, or, you know, what if I don't feel good? What if I'm too tired? And of course, then it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, not purposefully, of course.
Yeah.
Can you see a difference, like in just your thoughts now? Like how come, like, are you just not having those worried thoughts about your health, or like what do you see differently?
Yeah, I think that I have for sure a lot less worrying thoughts about my physical condition, because I've already seen, like, I've already proven to myself that that's not necessary. It doesn't make sense, I guess, for me anymore to worry about it, because I've already been able to do all this stuff, and I've proven to myself that I can do it. It's not a problem anymore. But I have to say, like, I may have a thought that comes to mind, like a fleeing thought, and then I don't really pay attention to it, because I know that it's not true. So, and also I have to say that sometimes I'm tired and I don't think, oh, it's my chronic fatigue. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm just tired. Sometimes I have knots in my neck and my back, but I don't think about it as, oh, it's my fibromyalgia. I'm just stressed. I have like stress knots and I go and I get a massage. That's what occurs to me. And I don't think of it as a problem. It's just part of, what is. So it's really a whole different way of thinking about all of it. So I may have some symptoms.
Yeah. So you've had, doctors telling you this is who you are basically. Yeah. And of course, as a regular person in the world, you just believe a doctor, you just assume they're right because they've been to school and they see other patients and they know this stuff. So what do you think about that now? Maybe we shouldn't get into that, but.
Well, I got to tell you that the last doctor that I went to see when I wanted to go off of the medication, really gave me a hard time about it. I had to stop seeing him if I wanted to go off the medication because he was really discouraging. And he said something to me like, well, you could go off if you want, but we know how this is going to end up. I left there with him saying that to me. So I had to stop seeing him and do it. I had to go off of my medication really on my own without the help of the doctor. Luckily, I do have one doctor who's kind of like a alternative medicine kind of doctor, kind of functional medicine, who always kind of supports whatever decision that I make, But the specialist, I had to stop seeing him
because when you're that kind of a doctor, that's what you see everywhere. Like if you're an oncologist, you see cancer in everything, and or whatever it is. It's so. What would you tell somebody, who just maybe got diagnosed with something like that, and that's what they were told?
Yeah, I can only tell you my experience, and I don't know anything. All I know is what happened to me and what I've seen. Everybody's experience is really different, and I don't even know if I was diagnosed with something else, what my experience with that would be, to be honest. Even if somebody is diagnosed and has to take medication, I really feel like medication was really helpful to me for a time until it wasn't, medication can be really, really helpful for things like everything that I had, depression, anxiety, pain, for sure. Even not that long ago, after I went off the pain medicine, I used to carry it with me when I went out of town, even though I never used it. Because listen, nobody likes to be in excruciating pain, and I was in excruciating pain. So it used to be like a security blanket kind of thing where they're expired and I would take them because I would, because when you're in a lot of pain, I can't tell anybody what to do when they're in a lot of pain, you got to do what comes to you. And we talk about wisdom and what comes to us. Something will come to us as the right thing to do. It came to me to see this doctor and that doctor and the next doctor, right? To get the help that I needed at the time. And then it also came to me to get off the pills when I was ready. I physically was getting sick from the sleep medicine that I took for many, many years. All of a sudden, that's what he couldn't understand. What do you mean you're getting sick from it? I'm like, yeah, my body is ready to get off of it. It's telling me, I'm listening to my body, So everybody has to listen to their own body and know what's right for them and what isn't right for them. And when it's time to be on medicine, when it's time to be off medicine. What I would say is listen to your body and know that when you get out of the way with a lot of thinking, just like when the cut heals, if you keep picking at it, you're not going to let a cut heal. I feel like that's kind of what I was doing. I kept like researching things and worrying about it and thinking that I was going to fix everything and, running to this and that and the other. When I finally just relax, accept, and get out of the way to allow the body that knows it has its own wisdom to know what it needs to heal, because our bodies have that capability to heal. Like I felt like I got out of the way enough for my body to relax, and at least I gave it the best chance to heal. Like there may be other conditions that are not going to heal, I don't know what other people have out there, but I feel like if you give it at least the best chance to do what it's supposed to do.
That's so useful and so hopeful and so true. I can relate to that, as I was having really bad back pain a few weeks ago, and it was getting progressively worse, and then the dam broke. It's how I think of it, where it boom, really, like how you all of a sudden get that pain, right down the nerves, and I couldn't move or whatever, and I noticed that because once before, when I had back pains about 4 years ago, I had read the John Sarno book you were talking about, Healing Back Pain, and he does mention fibromyalgia in there too. But when I had read that the first time, and I had just had like a herniated disc, or at least that's how they diagnosed it. He talks a lot about repressed anger and repressed feelings and things. And I thought, well, that's weird. I had been maybe a year into the 3 principles, and I'm like, I'm perfect. My mind is good. I don't have any repressed thoughts, but I'm like, well, what the hell? I'll, let me, just think about it a little. And I was laying on my bed, sort of I found a position I could lay in that wasn't hurting. And I sort of thought about people in my life that maybe I still needed to forgive or something like that. And I kind of just went through that for 20 minutes. And then when I moved, like the pain was gone. I had become sort of numb in certain areas, but that was okay. But then, so this time around, I was like, oh, well, I know how to fix this. And I was so, I can get rid of any back pain. That's no big deal. And so I was trying to do that again. I reread the book. I had the audio now, and I listened to the audio, and, I sort of thought about things that could be happening in my life, especially at the time when it first started, but nothing was changing. And it was, staying the same. And then, but I think it wasn't until I had that sort of similar, in fact, you said to me something about the pain coming through you instead of to you. And I was thinking about that actually was helpful to me. But also what you just said now, just getting out of the way and thinking that you could fix it yourself. That was me. I know how to fix anything, And when I finally was like, well, maybe I don't. Maybe I can't fix this, and it is what it is. But when you're in pain, like you say, like it's all you can think about. It's all you can focus on. And it's like this trap that keeps you focused on yourself when even if you don't want to be focused on yourself, you can't help it. But then, so it did, after I sort of was like, all right, it is what it is. Got that numbness again. I woke up one morning and it was just numb, which is no big deal. I don't mind having a numb foot. It went down into my foot. But what it was, again, getting out of my own way, not thinking I'm not in control. It's not me. The body does know what it's doing, but the more we dig into it, it's so funny.
Yeah. And really, I don't know. I've had actual experiences of being in a lot of pain and then not focusing on the pain and then feeling the pain less. But we have a tendency that when we have pain, we just put all our focus on it. It's very human. It's very natural because it's like really bothering you. So you put a lot of focus on it. But maybe if you put on a TV or something and watch something, you'll notice that when your attention is not on the pain gets less.
Yes, and that I was noticing that as well. When sometimes I felt like I couldn't distract myself, like it wasn't working. But other times I would realize, even if it was just for 5 seconds, I would notice, wait a minute, I didn't feel pain that 5 seconds when I was really into the show or whatever it was. And that does tell you something. And I think I mentioned somewhere to you, or it was in our other group, about, I sort of had this insight that pain is like, I noticed it being, it's like the energy of thought. It's just another form of that same energy. I think this is how I was seeing it, but it was manifesting in the body as this pain instead. But it's thought too. It's thought energy. It's just that's just how we experience it. And it didn't really help me to think that, but that was how I was imagining it somehow.
Yeah, for sure. The only way we can experience it is through thought. I mean, it's really the only way we could experience it, right? So everybody's pain feels different to them. Some people have higher tolerance and some people have a lower tolerance, but it's only through thought, that you can experience it. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any particular insight that you had that sort of turned everything around? Was it that one about that it was happening through you, not to you, or was there more than that?
Well, I think just having the mind-body connection, I told you I've been doing a lot of thinking this week about the past because I kind of wanted to like refresh my memories to tell you stories or whatever. And I remember I was in the hospital and the nurse said to me when I was feeling really bad, "Do you feel like any of this is psychological?" She said that to me. And at the time I took offense.
Yeah.
Because I was feeling really bad. And it was for real. It felt like, no, I'm not making it up. It's not in my head. But then when I look at it now, it's like, oh, it's all psychological too. It's all psychological, because that's how we work. We work psychological and affects the body. So it just, you don't know when you're in the midst of something, how you're going to think about it, That's why I say, like, I can never put myself in somebody else's shoes. And I wasn't ready to hear it until I was ready, So everything kind of worked its way until I was ready to hear that about the inside out understanding. And then something clicked inside of me. Like when I first read Michael's book, I read it 4 times, in a row. Like I knew I was hearing something that was really important. And that important thing changed my life. And not just in the physical part of it, like in every part,
So what else did it change? Let's go there a little bit if you.
Yeah, I mean, just every part of I think the most important thing is, look, before I came across the principles, I wouldn't even write on Facebook. I wouldn't even put myself out there that much. Okay. So that was who I thought I was. I was shy and insecure and not good enough. And I had put myself in a box of all these things that I thought I was, and that I was capable of, right? I didn't think I was capable. I mean, having been sick for so many years, I mean, I felt pretty capable before all that happened to me. Like I was like a survivor. I had, come from a not so great family. I'd put myself through school. I'd done really well. I'd gotten a good job, but I felt one way. And then after that, I felt another way. But the funny part is it's all thought, right? It's all what you think of yourself. Before I thought of myself one way, and then I thought of myself another way. It's always just what you're thinking about yourself. And when that insight really came to me, then I realized, I could be anything I decide I wanted it to be. I can do this. I can do this webinar. I mean, I had some thinking about coming on here because I've always had fear of speaking in public. But when you know that it's just your thinking and that it's not really true and that you're making up stories about yourself, it just makes you a little bit braver to say, it doesn't matter whether I'm having anxiety, that's fine. I know where that's coming from, but I could still do it.
Right. And it's not the same as like feel the fear and do it anyway. It's
Yeah,
it's a different quality to it because it's you just know what it is and you know it's not dangerous in and of itself. And so
exactly.
it's like whatever. But
Yeah,
I love that the part about identity and stuff because that's where I sort of had my first insights as well was just like because for me, I was a different person before 5 years ago. You know, my thing was I just had decided to lose weight, and that losing of weight and changing what I like to eat and changing my that I like to exercise, being the exact opposite of how I used to be. Like I saw, like how can that be? Like how can you be this one day and this opposite another day? Like that's just so weird. Like who would imagine you could be that way? And yet that's happening to us our whole lives. We just don't notice.
yeah,
And that's like so cool. If you see that, it's so freeing because you can literally be anything you
yeah,
dream of. It's unlimited potential. We have infinite potential to be or do anything aside from the stories that tell us otherwise. It's all a story. The me who I am now, it's all a story.
absolutely. Me, who I am now, is a story. I just like the story better than the last story.
Yeah,
But
and you might like a different one.
exactly. Maybe I'm sure, a couple years from now, I'll have another story of who I am because we're not any of it.
Yeah.
We're not any of those stories.
Yeah.
We're
It's
much
so
greater
cool.
than that.
And I saw, I've been, what's her name? Claire,
Diamond?
Diamond. She's on. I see her on Facebook a lot. And she talks a lot about the the I or whatever. It's not that there's no such thing as the you and stuff. And I most of the time I'm kind of like, yeah, but that's still I don't see it that way. Like I still see the I, and I've been trying to unravel my I and all that stuff. But she wrote something the other day that really something about it the way because she was talking about identity and saying that there is no I because this identity of ours is changing all the time, which I knew because that's what I've seen for myself. And so where is it? Which one's the I? Which one's it? If it's changing all the time. And I was like, oh, and that was a kind of nice insight too to see it a little bit differently. There really isn't. There's no I. I know there was no identity.
Yeah.
It's so freeing.
Yeah. No, I've been trying to understand her for a while now also. I get very
Yeah.
confused when I read her posts. And also, I had a conversation with Sarah Priestley recently also, and they're kind of all,
They're all Garrett
yeah,
students. They all
yeah.
Garrett. I still
Really,
don't
like
do.
went further, I think, from the principles into
Mm,
the oneness of all that we are.
yeah.
So, yeah, I've been trying to kind of wrap my brain around all of that, but no, not yet. But I do get what
Yeah.
you're saying. I do get what you're saying. I mean, for sure, we make up the story of who the I is, and that's
Right.
our
So
story.
where is it? What is it? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. I think there's been a few questions. Let me look in the chat here. People were asking about the panache to say. Did you have a specific book on that of his
You know,
that you?
I can't remember the name of the book, but
Uh-huh.
honestly, it really wasn't about panache to say. It was just funny that that book came in the mail and that it led me to Hay House and led
And
me
you
to,
don't know how it came.
and I don't know how it came.
You think someone sent it to you, like thinking it would help you, or you just don't even know?
I have no idea how it came. I'm just
Oh,
grateful
amazing.
that it did.
That's amazing. Sharon said, so beautiful. Thank you. That's our Sharon.
Oh, hi, Sharon.
Vanessa, I know my physical illness is psychological. I've always known that, but cannot heal from the psychological crap.
Mm.
Oh, and then Vanessa's also on Claire's course, but it's too much for her at the moment. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, or if, Vanessa, if you're interested and want to unmute yourself and ask something to Essi, feel free if you're still here. Vanessa is here. I know my physical illness is psychological, but I've always known that I cannot heal from the psychological crap. Well, I think that has to do with what you said, that it's not up to her.
Yeah, it isn't. But I think if you keep looking in this direction, you know, if you keep, like, I don't know what's going on with her, but if you keep looking in this direction, I mean, it's always part psychological in the sense that it's always coming through us. So.
Oh, she wants to, she'll come on. So yeah, go ahead. I'm going to unmute you, Vanessa. All right. You're unmuted if you want to, speak.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh. Hello. I don't really know what to say, but yeah, just the comments I put in there. Just in there. I've always known that the physical illnesses are all linked to the anxiety and depression, which are linked to my thoughts and feelings. It's like I've always known that. So when I came into this understanding, it all made sense. And it felt like I was really understanding and growing and things were changing. And it's like I've taken like 100 steps backwards. And like you said about Claire, I was basically got friendly with Claire and Garrett was like basically saying I was going to be his next best student and everything. But then, like I say, I can get it, and then I can fall straight out of it again, which we all do. And I think I've sort of fell more than most. And I do get really locked into this really, really bad. I suffer from suicidal depression, so it's like I seem to fall a lot deeper than other people. And yeah, the course I'm doing with Claire at the moment, it is well beyond 3P. It's more non-duality. It's more, there is no you. There is nothing to, you know, there is no little you. There is no ego at all. There is, and basically like Garrett's saying, there is no difference between you and anything else. There's no difference between you and another object. And it's like I said to him today, well, yeah, because there does feel a big difference between me and other people and me and my animals and me and other objects. I do feel separate. So I think maybe that's just taking it a bit too far for me at the moment.
You're not alone there. I read Garrett's post today, and where he talked about the separation of other objects, and that, you know, have you ever seen a separate object? I'm like, yeah.
Like, yeah, that's what
now all the time.
That's what I sent him a message about today. And my big thing with Garrett is this thing about, like I say, he took me under his wing, and he really helped me, and he put me onto Claire, who really helped me. And then it was like, I think he just thought, you know, this girl really knows what she's talking about. But then when he saw actually what's going on for me all the time, like it is for a lot of people, that you're going into it and then you're coming out of it and dropping 10 steps back, you know, I think he thought, oh Christ, you know, this girl's just too much to handle.
Well, I think that's your story, about being the I've heard pretty much everyone I talk to tells me that same story, that they're the worst student of all, that they fall back the farthest of anyone. And believe it or not, that's ego. It's that negative ego bit of us that we're the best at being the worst. Like that's such a common thing. And it's no different than any other ego thing. But let me see if Essi has anything else to add to what you were talking about. I was
going to say kind of the same thing that you're saying. She has a belief. And what are beliefs? They're thoughts. So she has a belief that she's the worst student, or she's not, she can't get this, or, all this is beliefs. And that's what we kind of have to look at. Like, what do we really believe? Because beliefs are strong within us. But when we really look at beliefs, they're just really thoughts that we hold to be really, really true. Right? Yeah. So you may have a belief that your depression is, really, really bad, or that you're like a special case of depression. But what You know, like, what if you just were, I have had suicidal thoughts. I think if we asked, a lot of people would have said at some point in their life, they've had suicidal thoughts, right? I mean,
Yeah, I do agree with that. But the thing is, I've had them for years, constantly, like every day, battling them. And it's like, you know, when you talk to people in this understanding, and it's like, you know, oh, I suffer a bit of depression, or I have a little bit of this. And it's like, but they still have full lives, they have careers, they have families, they have children, they have everything. And it's like, my life just completely stopped years ago because of, like you, because of all the illnesses. It was like one on top of the other, and it just got worse. And then, like you, I couldn't come off medication. They kept me on it, so I couldn't try for a child, so that just added to it. And it's like, I've never been able to come off the medications, and I know they're just making me worse. I know they're not helping.
I'm really sorry that you have to go through all that, and I totally understand how difficult it is when you're in it, because that's why I said I could never put myself in another person's place, because when I was in it, it was really hard for me to see also what was happening, you know. But I would say, like, if you just continue to look in this direction, to know that the only way you're ever feeling is through your thinking, ever. And that 90% of what we think, most of the time, I think it's like 90%, isn't always true and real. It's just true and real for us. And the illusion is very real.
But you can't change your thoughts, can you? I know the feelings are coming from the thoughts, but you can't choose the thoughts that you're having. And then, obviously, when this has been going on for so long and it's so ingrained, all the thoughts are horrible. So it's like, then all the feelings are horrible, then all the thoughts are horrible, and it's like a vicious circle that you just can't get out of.
But do you ever have times in a day where you're not thinking about your depression? Do you ever have moments in the day where you're not thinking about your depression?
Not much anymore.
So you're pretty much thinking about it 24/7.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about the 1 second of the day when you don't have thinking about depression? There's got to be 1 second in the day.
I'm probably thinking that I just don't want to be like this anymore. I want to be different.
Do you see any hope in Essi's story of her, how she was exactly like you? And she's how much she's come through it. Like, is there any hope in that story for you? It sounds very similar.
Yeah, I love listening to it, and it does bring hope. But it's like, for me, it's just like the one thing that would have really brought me hope if I'd sort of come out of this would have been having children, and it's too late for me now. So I know it's another story, but it's like, well, what's the point of getting better now? Because I can't have the life that I wanted to have.
Well, what comes to mind is, you know, we always talk about the life that we have, but the truth is that we are life. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you may not have the life that you have this idea about, but you still are life, and your life is important, just like, you know, it's important just like everybody else's life, you know. And you still have wisdom within you and within your psychology, and as well as within your body. So that's always still happening. So a lot of times we have to accept kind of where we are in the moment.
Yeah, and I can't do that. That's my problem, I know.
You know, because a lot of times, I know it's really, really difficult, and my heart goes out to you. It does, because I've been there. I mean, I was at a point where, like, I had a plan, you know, of how I was going to get out of here. And
I've been even worse than that.
I had a couple of kids at the time, but I can tell you that sometimes it just takes a moment of a different thought. And for me, I can remember like I had like one moment of gratitude that came to me. It wasn't like I decided I was going to be grateful. It was like I had one moment of gratitude for maybe just doing something without any pain for that moment. And it kind of built on that, where I was kind of more living from that one moment. You know, so every moment wasn't horrible. There was one moment. And maybe you need to see for yourself also, like, is there ever a moment where when you're not thinking about your depression, and just kind of build on that.
Yeah.
But for sure, no, I was just going to say, like, for sure, I really feel, this is just my opinion, and I don't know anything other than my experience, that there is definitely a place for medication. Like, I think if you're going through a deep depression or you're going through a lot of anxiety, if you take medication, like, that can help you get to a point where you're maybe a little more clearer to be able to move forward and look in this direction and, you know, be more clear to be able to see something. Like, I definitely feel like medication has its place. And then in the future, for some reason, if you feel like you want to get off, that might be something you might want to do in the future. But when you're in it, I definitely feel like medication can be very helpful. I know it was for me.
Yeah, I agree, but it's just like I've been on one of the medications for 20 years, and it's like I tried to come off it so many times because I wanted to try for children, and I couldn't, and no doctor would help me with it. It was like, well, you know, if you can't come off it and stay off it, then you're obviously ill again. It was never anything about the fact that there are now all these clinical studies and thousands of people online saying that these medications are addictive and some people can't come off them. And after you've been on them 20 years, they change the way your body works.
I was on medication for 20 years.
And Vanessa, you can, I'm sure Essie's available too if you'd want to talk privately, you know, later on after the, you know, at another time too, because, you know, these things obviously you can't solve 20 years of problems in a webinar, but speaking with somebody directly is helpful.
Yeah.
And I know right now Sharon also would like to come on and say something. So Sharon, if you're still
Hi.
Ah, there you are.
Hi.
Hi, sweetie.
Hi. This is so beautiful to listen to, and I'm struck. I keep seeing all these notes go up, and it's Vanessa, right, who was just talking?
Yes.
And I guess I just want to say that I think there's so many of us who want to say me too, me too, me too. Like, I don't think Essie and I are alone, or Jill, in saying, like, first of all, I'm just sending so much love. I was bawling my eyes out yesterday, not wanting to be alive. And I've been in this understanding for 27 years. And I think it's just, I'm really looking at it because I'm thinking, I don't think there's anything about when we think that when we get this, our pain's gonna hurt less. We get crushed. Like, I get crushed. I think, how is it that my pain is so intense, right? But the way that it works, and this is where I feel like you're not alone and I'm not alone and none of us are alone, is that it's normal to feel absolutely devastated when we're having devastated thoughts. And at some point, yes, like over the past few days, it was like, I'm having too many, I'm abnormal. And the most helpful thing that somebody was sharing with me yesterday was something that I just thought I would bring to this conversation for everybody, which is that this is not a pass out of feeling awful. This is understanding that when we think that we're unique, none of us are. I know it looks so much worse. Like, I could give you a million reasons why I'm so much worse than everyone else. And on a good day, I can give you like a million reasons why I have the most blessed life, right? But what what I loved, like Essi was saying, when she was talking about her pain, like it's psychological. What was so amazing about Essi, what you said about it's psychological, or, you know, you're experiencing it through psychology, is you said that's just how it works. It's not like it's psychological and it's not your fault. It's not, you know, it's like not all this blame stuff. It's just, it's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm having devastating thinking, I'm going to feel devastated. And that's going to be the case forever. Mm-hmm. And at what point am I different than somebody else? Like if I have devastated thinking 5 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 15 hours a day, right? Like we make up these rules about at what point we are officially messed up and different than everybody else.
Yeah. That's a great point.
What was so helpful to me yesterday was somebody saying, I don't care if you've been crying for 3 days and, you know, not wanting to be alive and angry, and you're still normal and you still have health in you that does pop up 1 second a day. Like it doesn't matter how many seconds a day it pops up. It's arbitrary. We decide with our thinking how many seconds counts that makes us a normal human with health. And the truth is, every single human being on the planet, every single human being has health. Beneath that story is the fact of health.
Yeah.
And that the more like I listen to people, you know, like Jill and Essi and you, Vanessa, talk about your experience, and everybody else who's sending you love, the more I'm like reinforced by the fact that that health is there.
It is.
So I just, because it was resonating so much with me, I didn't really want to like do a big thing, but because it was resonating so much with me, I mean, I was suffering yesterday because I don't have kids and I'm past childbearing age. Like there's so many things that you were saying. I was like, me too. And I just want to give you a hug. But the biggest me too is I'm not fucked up, and neither are you.
Yeah.
We just sometimes really, really think that. And it looks that way, and we can have a very compelling story to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to share that with you. And just thank you guys, Jill and Essi, because what you're sharing is gorgeous. And I've had so much pain and physical stuff, and this is really helpful to me. Just everyone today, you're just beautiful. Thank you.
And you have the rays of sunshine coming right in on your face now, making you look like an angel.
The angel you are. Thank you for sharing that, Sharon, because that's so important.
Yesterday I was a demon, and today I'm an angel. See?
Yeah, but what you just shared, Sharon, is so important for especially somebody like Vanessa who's in the midst of it to realize and see. Like I still have days where I feel there's something wrong with me, you know, like we all have that. That's why I wanted to say before, like sometimes I still have bad days, you know, I just don't label them. I don't give myself a label of, you know, I have depression or I have anxiety or I have chronic fatigue. Like, but I'm still having all the same symptoms as before. You know, sometimes I just have bad days. And the thing about being human is that we're going to have all of it. We're going to have the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. We're going to be feeling everything that we think.
Yeah. I think that point is so key, that people forget, especially in the peace of mind group where we're targeting this towards. It for some reason there's so many people that seem to think, and maybe because they've studied self-help for so long, that this is the cure for pain and psychological pain, and that this is going to make them feel good all the time. Like, and that's not it. That's not what we're saying at all, unfortunately. I mean,
yeah.
But we wouldn't be in this world, you know, that we're here. We're here to experience the whole of life, the ups and downs, the whole roller coaster. That's why we go on roller coasters and watch scary movies and things like that, because we like the ups and downs in some maybe masochistic, morbid way. I don't know, but that's, yeah, it's not, life's still gonna happen. Of course, life's gonna happen. people are going to die. People are going to get sick. We're going to get sick. We're going to die. The one true thing we know for sure, and it's the one thing we all deny somehow in our psychology.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, I always hesitate a little bit about talking about my condition because people want to know, like, how did you get better? But, you know, I know people that have not gotten better physically. They still have whatever they have. It could be like MS, or it could be something maybe that there isn't a cure for, but they could still be okay where they are, accepting where they are, and still be okay under any circumstance. And a medical diagnosis is a circumstance in a sense, you know, like they still have the condition, but they're still living in there thinking about it too. And they can be accepting and okay with that as well, because we don't have the cures to everything.
Yeah. And there seems to be this fear of being okay with bad stuff, because that like Vanessa even said, you know, I can't be okay with it or whatever, but there's not a way you can't, you know, we can potentially be okay with whatever, but it's almost like there's a fear that if we're okay with it, then we're saying it's good, which is not what we're saying. We're not saying it's good to be in pain. We're just saying it's what's happening right now, and it's what's happening now. I can, if I'm okay with it, then I'm okay with it. If I'm not okay with it, I will suffer more.
Exactly.
You know, but it's happening either way.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Like when something's happening, you're either accepting or you're suffering.
Yeah. And so you can be okay with whatever is happening. I mean,
sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. It really,
right. That's true. That's true.
We have no control over what thoughts come to us. Sometimes I'm okay with being really tired, and sometimes I have all kind of thoughts of, you know, beating myself up about it. You know, like there's no rhyme or reason to what kind of day I'm going to have, or what thoughts are going to come to me. All I know is that understanding this has, and continuing to look in this direction on how we work has helped me to see, you know, something, an insight that has made my life more peaceful, with more moments of joy and easier, if you look at the whole. But, you know, on a day-to-day basis, it goes up and down, up and down.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vanessa says, thanks to everybody. And Sharon said, we are only okay in the moment. We are only okay in the moment. In others, no fucking way. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes we're okay and sometimes we just are not. And we don't really have control over that, because if we do, we'd always be okay. We would choose okayness. If we had a choice, we would choose okayness. Nobody would ever choose not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It's so interesting. So interesting how it works. Would anybody else like to either ask a question or make a comment? You can unmute if you know how, or make a message in the chat, or raise hand. We have a good lot of people on.
Yeah. I've been really good.
Now the sun's really coming in on Sharon.
I can tell you an interesting story about my husband and the power of belief. So in the midst of all my crisis, my husband gets diagnosed with vitiligo. And I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's like a discoloration in your pigment. So all of a sudden he had like white blotches, no pigment in his skin, in his face, of all places. So you can imagine he was distraught. And we live in Florida, and then they told him, you know, like, stay out of the sun. You know, like that was what they told him to do. And it was really, really, it's an autoimmune disease, actually. and probably just from all the stress we were under as a family, given everything that I had been going through. So he goes to the dermatologist and they give him these pills and he has to go under a light and they're telling him, we're going to try to get your color back, but this is what you have and you're going to have to deal with it and whatever. So then he goes for a visit one day and there's like another doctor that he saw that he hadn't seen before. And he just says to the doctor, I think what I want to do is just bleach my face so that at least if it's going to be white, it'll just be all white. I won't have any pigment on it. It'll just be even instead of looking all like blotchy. And the woman says to him, well, I really wouldn't recommend that because what if the color comes back? And he was like, what do you mean? Can the color come back? And nobody had told him that was even a possibility. And you know what? As soon as he realized that that was a possibility, the color came back. He started going in the sun for little bits at a time. And now you can't even hardly tell anymore. Like so much of the color came back only because he was told that it could come back. And his belief changed from this is the way I'm going to have to be to, there's a possibility that this can get better. And just like that.
And that's how it is, I think, for everything, every physical thing that there is, because that's just the way it works. Because we create everything. We create our reality. We create our physical body in some crazy way. I can't really wrap my head around, but we do. I mean, the fact that do you know, have you heard Joe Bailey's story about Lyme's disease?
Yes.
Yeah, and we can maybe link to that. He's got some videos about it, but so just for anyone who hasn't heard it, he had Lyme's disease really badly, was on 100 different medications, and went to see somebody in Malaysia, and he was just walking down the street with the guy. It was some kind of healer doctor or something like that, and the doctor just said one thing to him. He said, you don't believe that you can cure yourself. And Joe was like, he just had that insight, like bing. And which was funny because Joe Bailey's been teaching this stuff for 20, 30, 40 years. And he's like, that's what I tell my people. But that ping, when he heard what the guy said, was, oh my God, like he kind of must have had an idea, or I can cure myself, but something in him didn't actually have that belief, that full belief. And as soon as he had that ping, he was better. Like the next day even, he was better. And then they even checked his blood later when he got home, and it was like free of the disease. And I mean, like miracle stuff here.
Yeah.
And it's the hope for anybody and everybody with physical stuff, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're a failure, like if it's not working for you. Like just like for me with my back, I thought I could cure it, but that's the lesson. It's not me who does it. It's not. I don't. It just does it.
Yeah, I did a program with Joe, and basically he just didn't realize how much thinking he had about his Lyme disease until he spoke with this guy. Like so much thinking around it, that when he realized that this is no different than anything else. Everything that we wrote like 5 books on it. Like this, it just had an insight. This is no different than everything else. He just had so much thinking around it.
It's amazing. And then there's all the people that John L. Macadam has talked to who have things like fibromyalgia and autoimmune stuff. I mean, he has a million stories of people learning this same stuff and becoming free from it, or mostly free from it. Amazing. So Vanessa asked, so did your physical ailments go when you really discovered this understanding? Yeah, that's pretty much what you said, right?
I was already like heading in that direction because I had already had like an insight about the mind-body connection. And I had read a lot of books, like also The Power of Now, and just I started becoming more aware of my thoughts, like I wasn't my thoughts, I wasn't my body, like those kind of things. And then when I found this understanding, it all kind of came together and made sense for me. And for sure, I've gotten better, much better, and able to have the courage to get off of the medication once I came across this understanding. Because I was doing better before I came across it, but I was still, in my head, I thought I'm doing okay because I'm on all these meds. Like that was my thinking, And then I realized, no, I'm like, really, I'm okay. I don't need these meds was my next thought. Like, it's not something that you do. It's something that just occurs to you. It's something, we're not doing anything. You know what I mean? It's just, you have an insight about it. And that's going to happen when it's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's I think where people get a little mixed up is they're looking for that doing. I mean, we all do. We want to know how do we do it. And it's so, you want to be able to tell people how to do it, but there's nothing to tell because it is so different for every person. And that's the key. Like, it's when something occurs to you. So if somebody says, well, should I go, just take a walk, or should I meditate or whatever? It's like, if that comes to you and it's helpful to you, then sure, do it. But it's not, we can't just say, go take a walk, then do this, then take a bath, and then,
Yeah. We have to all listen to our own wisdom, and we have to listen to our own bodies. Can't really somebody else, and I can't tell anybody what to do or what I did in order to get better, because everybody's different.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me, Essi, like I heard your story a while ago, and it shifted something for me, like after a long time. And like I said, I've been in this understanding for a while, but I think it's what you said about when you hear somebody's story and there's this like piece that you're like, oh, maybe that's possible. Like I love the story about how there was this runner, there was like a world record for a race, and it lasted for decades. And everybody thought that was just the physical limit of what people could do. And then at a certain point, somebody broke the record, and then everybody started breaking the record. And I feel like that's kind of what happened for me listening to your story, but it's not like all of a sudden everything's away. And I think it just occurred to me as you guys were talking, like, what is the definition, just like what is the definition of whether we're mentally well or whether we're fucked up, that we make up in our minds? Like, how many good days counts as mentally well, right? But also, like, what's the definition of healing? Like, the moment that I'm engrossed in a movie and I'm unaware of my pain, in that moment, like I could call that healing. Or the moment that I'm in pain, but it isn't as upsetting to me as another moment, I could call that healing. Like, just because there's like a physical symptom doesn't mean there's not healing happening all the time, or even if that word, who knows what that word really is. But it just occurred to me that it's not a black or white thing.
Yeah, no, it's also whatever you think it is too. Like, everybody has a different definition of what it means to be well.
Yeah. We make it up, and then we either fail what we've made up or we succeed what we've made up.
Exactly. And I think just having like an insight about that can be so helpful. That we're making up what is good, we have so many judgments. We make up what's good, we make up what's bad, we make up what's sick, we make up what's healthy. We make it up, and then we define ourselves by what we've made up.
Yep. We're funny creatures. We make up all kinds of stuff. I see people suffering because they make up that they have to have their house clean, that they have to, there's all these little rules that they've made up for themselves, or their mother maybe made it up for them a long time ago, and then they suffer because they can't meet their own made up rules. It's hilarious.
Right. Like, in our society, like, maybe it's weird that you take a nap. That's considered weird. In other societies, they take naps in the middle of the day, and that's perfectly normal. That's a perfect example. Like, who says what's okay and what isn't? Society or our beliefs.
There's so much in that. Yeah. If you imagine, like, if you took your same self and you were just born in a different country or a different time period, or, you know, I mean, there's so many variables, how different you'd of course be just from the culture and your conditioning. Like it's think about that. That's just more of how identity is not a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Not a solid thing.
Yeah. And I'm seeing that change for me because I've had this belief that I have insomnia, but I could see it's dissolving. And I already know, like, sometimes you could see something so clearly, like what I saw with my chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, and yet be really stuck with something else, like insomnia, you know? But it's all still the same thing. Like, if I believe I have insomnia and I have a lot of thinking about insomnia, I'm not going to sleep because I'm not thinking about not sleeping, you know? Mm-hmm. But once you start to say, you know, is that really true? Like, and do I need to sleep 8 hours straight, or I have insomnia? Or can I sleep a few hours, get up, and then sleep a few more hours and not consider myself having insomnia? You know, like, we make up all the rules on, like, what even is insomnia, you know, or how many hours should I have to sleep 8 straight hours, or there's something wrong with me, you know? Yeah. But in other societies or whatever, people slept 4 hours and then they woke up and then they slept another 4 hours. Like, all of the stuff's made up. And I know for sure that I'm going to be able to sleep without any problems because I've already seen this work in other stuff, you know, and I know that it's just my thinking about having a problem sleeping.
Right. And when we call it, you know, I have insomnia, I have whatever, then it's identity piece, and identity, no matter how much we know it's not, it seems that's when it's solid, when it becomes identity. And yet identity is just beliefs that we keep on thinking, and, you know, that it's just one step. I picture like this thing, sort of like it's identity's at the top, this seemingly solid thing, and then but it's made up of beliefs here. But what are beliefs? Just thoughts that we keep thinking, and we know thoughts are nothing but energy. So that means identity is nothing but energy. So can't say I'm an insomniac, or I have insomnia, or I have any disease.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes I sleep well and sometimes I don't. How about just that?
Right. Right. How about just that? What else do we have over here? Some chit chat going on. I won't read all that, but
do you want to talk?
It's okay to be. Oh, does Miriam have something to say?
Miriam says Miriam's here with me, and she says she has a funny story about beliefs.
Put her on. She's got to pop up from the from the floor with the dog.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see all of you. So I've been listening, and it's all so wonderful and insightful, and I'm glad I'm here with Essi. I was telling her I was going to be here to hold her hand, but I haven't had to. She was amazing. I'm so proud. So with beliefs, I come from a Latin background, and I'm going to share something funny with all of you. Just to keep it light. So my father believed, because he's no longer around, that if you ate, you could not take a shower or cut your hair because you could possibly die. And that was his beliefs. And a lot of Latin men believe that after you eat, you cannot take showers or go to get haircuts because you can't go swimming because you could drop dead and die. So I remember being a young girl and being told this, and I remember having a banana, and I was walking on the beach, and I was making sure that the water didn't touch my feet because I was very close to the edge of where the waves were coming. And a wave came and grabbed me and pulled me in. And for 1 second, because I had a banana, I thought I was going to die. And I was like physically ill. And I went through the whole anxiety and everything else because I was told that if you eat a banana, you cannot get wet. So our belief systems and whatever our thoughts are about those beliefs can make a physical happening to our bodies. So I was just thinking when you guys said that, I was laughing. I was going, oh my God. And I thought I was eating a banana and the wave came and now I'm going to die because if the wave comes, my father told me. So, you know, we believe a lot of stories, you know, and that aren't true, you know, but if we believe them, then we could have things happen to us, physical things happen to us, just because we're thinking that this is true.
Yeah.
So that was my funny story for you guys.
Thank you. Yeah. And you know, I've heard other stories about people who believe they've been cursed, let's say, right? And then, you know, or they've been told they're going to die a certain day, and they do, because that's their belief.
Exactly.
You know? Or they've been diagnosed with something, and so they get that something, but then they were told later, oh wait, we made a mistake, and suddenly it goes away. You know, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it's connected, the mind and body.
Well, I mean, you know, like the placebo effect. People believe that something's going to help them, and then it does. You know, I mean, the beliefs are very, very strong.
And my son is a neuroscientist, and he said, I don't know if he read this somewhere, but even operations, I think they've come to the conclusion in some circles that most operations are placebo effect. Can you imagine that? All that stuff on the body and time and money and hurt and everything, and it's placebo effect. When you could do it a lot easier with. There was this shaman guy, I think, who did like fake operations in people, and they'd be all cured.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's kind of like what John Sarno was talking about a little bit in his book, Healing Back Pain. Like all these people that are diagnosed with so many back conditions, and some of them have surgery and they're fine, and some of them have surgery and they're not fine. You know, like it depends on, you know, whether they believe or whatever. But for sure, beliefs play a big role, or whether or not it's better.
It's huge. Let me see if there's anything else. Some more. Good one, Miriam, said Janice.
Oh, thank you.
There's some just more chatting back and forth with people. Well, I think maybe this is a good time to call it an end here. I think we've really covered this topic really well, and thank you, Essi, for sharing your story with everybody. It's so helpful. And what's your contact info if people want to get in touch with you?
Essi at wellbeingedu.com.
Essi at, that's your email. Essi at wellbeing
edu.
.edu.com.
Essi at wellbeingedu.com.
Okay, the way you said it.
Essi at wellbeingedu.com.
And you have your website is?
That's all. That's my website.
Wellbeing.com.
Wellbeingedu.com.
Wellbeingedu.com.
I have a Facebook page just at Essi Herman, or I have the wellbeingedu.com Facebook page also.
Yeah, and I think if you look up Essi Herman on Google, your website shows up, because I think that's what I found it when I put your little bio up for this.
I'm happy to speak with anybody, but especially Vanessa. If she'd like to have a chat, she can get in touch with me.
That would be great. Yeah, so anyone get in touch with Essi, and I'm always happy to speak with people too. I'm always putting that out there. If anyone wants to chat ever about whatever, because it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what you think you have or don't have.
Yeah. And I just want to thank you, Jill, for inviting me to the webinar and give me the opportunity to tell my story, that maybe it will help somebody either here or later on that sees this.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, my pleasure. It was nice to be able to do this. I need to do them more often. You got me to you got me to do one, so that was good all around. And thank you, Miriam, too, for being here, and our other friends from Martha's Vineyard. Sharon, thank you.
Yeah. Sending my love to all my Martha Vineyard family.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a few of them on here, if they still are. Debbie's on, yeah, she's still on. I saw Miriam Mariana, I think, was on. I don't see her on now, but I think I saw her name on there. So that's cool.
Yeah, we love you all and we miss you.
Yes.
And thanks to everybody else who came in. And I will put this up on YouTube. I'll put it up in the little Peace of Mind group as well. I'll probably put it up on my regular Facebook page. So it'll be all over for anyone who would like to watch it again, or send it to anybody else who you think it might be helpful. That would be great if anyone wanted to share it. I'm going to unmute everyone if you want to all just say a big goodbye. Unmuted. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, Megs.
Hey, honey.
Oh, I'm so glad you were listening.